Welcome to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast. And you're very welcome back to the Hawkeye Sidekick Hurling podcast with your host Mark Kennedy. Joined again this week by Ruairi, Walsh and Kieran Collins. Lads, how are things?
Great, Mark. Yourself?
Yeah, great. I suppose this week, lads, we'll review the All-Ireland Senior A Colleges hurling semi-finals. We know our finalists on St. Patrick's Day. St. Kieran's College and St. Raphael's Loughrea will be in the final after exciting wins over Artscoil Reach and Nina CBS respectively. We'll have a review of that. We'll also look at round 4 of the Allianz Hurling League, Division 1 Group A, Group B and Division 2A. Some exciting matches there. I suppose, Ruairi, can I get your thoughts on these All-Ireland Senior A Colleges hurling semi-finals? I suppose we'll start off in Bancha in County Tipperary, St. Kieran's College against Artscoil Reach. Battle of the Titans here, but to be fair, Ruairi, St. Kieran's were really impressive, and an 8-point win was pretty much an accurate reflection on how things went.
Yeah, and even midway through the first half, it kind of looked like this was going to be the way it was going to go. Kieran's had already opened up a 6-7 point lead at that stage, went out to 8. Artscoil got it back to 5, maybe just inside the second half, and that was the closest they got. On the day, they were just kind of beaten in too many positions, and especially full back line couldn't get a grip on Kieran's. You had Hunt scoring 1-2 inside, Glynn 4 points, and incidentally that 1-6 from play was more than the whole of Artscoil scored from play, just from those two players inside. So kind of gives an indication of the damage the full forward line did. And we'd spoken about how emphatic Kieran's were in the Leinster final, and they backed it up since with kind of a real powerful display again. As well, I like McAvoy as well, even though he didn't score from play, set up a lot of scores, very direct runner, drove through the half-back line and was, decent on frees as well. Like Artscoil, I know Collins, half Ireland got 3 points, Fintan Fitz got 2, but they were struggling for scores in the rest of the forward line. Mark O'Brien, who had done the business in the previous game against Athenry, was kind of had one of his quieter games, still did well in frees, but from play, the Artscoil forward line kind of struggled to light it up a bit. And in the end, they were very good. Kieran's for their 7-point victory in the end.
Yeah,
8-point victory.
Yeah, exactly. Because 112 from play, 10 different scores. You mentioned Hunt and Glynn here. I thought Bergen. I thought it was just the styles here, Ruairi and Kieran as well. Just in terms of St. Kieran's, they were very meticulous, running through the lines, creating the space inside. And as you say, Artscoil Reach really hadn't any kind of answer to it, despite maybe a third quarter revival. I thought Tom McPhillips as well. I thought the half-back line for St. Kieran's were very dominant as well here, Ruairi, as well, weren't they? I can recall Tom McPhillips an 80-yard dash here for an inspirational score. He then sets up a score and wins a free towards the latter end to really kind of close out the game here. And from a St. Kieran's perspective, they're going into this final with great confidence.
Yeah, and also as well, they lost wing forward Ed McDermott from James Stephens, who's been prominent for them in previous games. Didn't seem to knock them off the stride whatsoever. So look, they had, I suppose, a bit of adversity to deal with there, and they just seemed so sure in what they were doing. Very well drilled, very well coached, and just very confident in the game plan they were playing, and executed it really well. And setting it up for a very interesting final now, because you have a traditional power in Kieran's, and you have Loughrea, who've been knocking on the door for a good few years, and will have their opportunity now to maybe take down Kieran's in the final. And we'll get onto that game now, Loughrea and in Tulla versus Nina, which was a rip-roaring game, which was kind of the opposite of the Kieran's Artscoil Reach match in one way.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kieran, before we kind of go to that St. Raphael's Nina, a word for St. Kieran's College here. What a magnificent hurling programme. It's their 9th successful final here, Kieran. It's a pilgrimage to Croke Park for this school anyway, and they've been very impressive this year.
It's just their playground, really, this competition, isn't it? 2013 was the last time they weren't in the final, and looking for their 7th title in that time frame. 9 successive, as you said, Mark, Croke Cup finals. It's some achievement, and I suppose they're so familiar with the competition and being in these latter stages that it's I suppose it's not new to them, and they will face a good battle against Loughrea, but I suppose based on that performance against Artscoil last weekend, I suppose, and being the powerhouse they are, you'd have to make them favourites going into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose, Ruairi, we can probably head to Tulla in County Clare, St. Raphael's Loughrea and Nina CBS, a windswept Tulla. And I mean, it certainly contributed to a very exciting contest here, Ruairi. I mean, 3-8 to 1-8 at halftime for Nina CBS, but you never felt at any time that San Raphael's Loughrea were any way out of it. And I mean, it was just an exciting spectacle from start to finish.
Just for people who didn't see the game, there was a strong breeze blowing in favour of Nina in the first half, and Loughrea stayed with them all the way through until the 25th minute. You could kind of tell that the closer they were to half time, it was going to make a big difference. As I said, the breeze was pretty significant, and the only spell really where they were completely, in trouble first, it was that 6 minute spell before half time where Nina rattled off 1-3 without reply and brought the gap to 6 points. Loughrea probably would have been kicking themselves at half time because they'd done so well for so long in the first half, and to go in just 6 points up. Sorry, to go in 6 points down after being right there with Nina for most of the half. But in fairness to them, they came out of the traps really well in the second half, and very quickly had the lead down to 2 points. McCorrick, a centre back from Sarsfield, he had a right tussle with Darren McCarthy, the Tumivara man who's been the main man for Nina so far in the Harty Cup and so on. They had a right tussle. Like McCarthy still ended up with 11 points. Really good from frees, has a real unique free taking style, but it serves him well in what we said were difficult conditions for free takers. But it all set it up for a grandstand finish. Like Nina, there was a couple of stoppages in the second half that definitely stalled Loughrea's momentum, and Nina picked it up again, put the gap out to 4 points, and then coming down the stretch, 3 points gap going into injury time, and you'd have felt that Loughrea would have needed a goal, but due to the injuries there ended up being 7 minutes of injury time, which was probably about right. Loughrea never panicked, just kept the scores ticking over. Goalkeeper Shane Murray produced an unbelievable save during that time. And had that gone in, I think that would have been, one blow too many for them. But in the end, they, whittled off the last 4 scores and just to creep over the line by a point. And you just have to hand it to them. It was a super way to finish the game. Fully deserved, and I know it could have gone either way. And Nina probably had that in the Harty Cup final, had that luck where they came out of a tight game at the very end, and this time it just didn't go against them. And I'm sure you'd be thinking, if you considering the conditions, that if Nina were to score 3-13, you'd have thought it would be a winning score. But for Loughrea to come out 120, what was, as I pointed out, soft pitch this time of year. We had lots of heavy rain during the week, strong wind blowing down, difficult for free takers. But look, it just produced still, it turned out to be a really tight game all the way to the end, and cracking advert for secondary school hurling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Franny Ford's culture was all over the San Raphael's Loughrea's performance. We hadn't seen a whole lot of them here, guys, and we hadn't really talked about them before, really. I mean, the Connacht Hurling final was very much a very tight affair with the presentation at Ruairi, but I think give kudos to Tina G with the YouTube coverage here. It's a great story here in San Raphael's. 4 GAA clubs around Loughrea, really being surrounded Kilkenarran, Loughrea, Sarsfields. So, I mean, from that perspective, it's a kind of a great advert here for East Galway hurling. But like Ruairi, the finish here, I mean, other teams would have wilted and died, particularly when they were 3 points down the stretch. But when Vince Morgan gets the point to equalise it, and then Colin Killeen with a magnificent score to win any match anyway. I mean, it was just a never say die attitude from San Raphael's. They stared Nina CBS straight between the eyes and give him the killer knockout blow.
And it's something we spoke about before in games where when the momentum is with you, those points seem to go over from the sideline, when you have that buzz and it's going, because we were talking just last week about, I was talking about Clare in particular going for low percentage shots, but sometimes, as we saw last year with Limerick and Ireland in the second half, when there's that buzz from the crowd, those scores seem to go over. So Colin Killeen, what a score to win the game. I suppose the game got the fitting winning score that, it deserved in one way. Just as well, for Loughrea, I was impressed. Cornerback Mar, another local lad from Loughrea himself. Just in the first half, Loughrea had to work out short, and he was very quick, kind of a cornerback, and was just a perfect man to take sharp puck out, and it kind of set Loughrea on for building plenty of attacks from their own full back line, and just kind of throughout the team as well, as we mentioned, McCorrick centre back, and has been in with the Galway seniors at the minute, and that's kind of a trend this year. Darren McCarthy, who we're pointing out, was in with the tip seniors, so often unusual to have secondary school lads in. But another man I suppose mentioning is in the B semi-final, St Killian's of Antrim. beat Portumna in a game 4-16 to 3-16. And Joseph McLaughlin, who had scored a goal for the Antrim seniors, scored 10 in that game. 3-6 from play, I think. So like there's another star on the horizon already playing senior hurling with Antrim. So yeah, it seems to be the year of the secondary school lads getting onto senior panels. So which makes, I suppose, for a very interesting championship as well, that there are these star players and each team seems to have their figurehead like as well. So all set up for a great final.
I think, Mark, though, just for a lot of credit has to go to Nina CBS. You know, they're first time winners of the Harty Cup, and you know, a puck of a ball away from going all the way to the to the Croke Cup final. And I suppose the one name, Rory, you mentioned him earlier, Darren McCarthy with 11 points in the day. You know, over the last couple of weeks, he's the one name that has come out from that Nina team, you know, week on week. So, you know, I suppose a really exceptional talent for them. And, you know, it's we've seen other teams over the last few years, and we've talked about Tulla, and, you know, after the Harty Cup, they can seem to falter. But, you know, I suppose prepared Nina, they kept the fight up. And, you know, I suppose Raphael with the 4 late points to win it, you know, and another day they could have gone their way. But just, I think, huge credit to them. And I suppose it's been a good year regardless for them.
Sorry, Mark, just an interesting one about the Nina coaching staff. You had Donnacha O'Donnell as kind of manager or head coach, but you had Mark Jennery, who was involved with Mary I as well. And the day Mary I played the Fitzgibbon final, he was sitting in the dressing room with Nina watching it on his phone beforehand. So he's had a busy few weeks between, you know, secondary school and third level success. So well done to him in one way, and well done to Nina. Like, they were within a whisker away of an All-Ireland final, you know. So as we said, could easily have gone their way, and in patches it looked like it was theirs for the taking, but you have to credit Loughrea for the fight back, and look, it just made for a great semi-final.
No, absolutely agree, Rory and Kieran, great points there. And I mean, from a San Raphael's Loughrea perspective as well, Campbell from cap tackle as well, I thought was very prominent in that third quarter, particularly the puck outs for Nina CBS. Loughrea were really dominating middle third and really provided some key scores here as well. I suppose we'll review the All-Ireland Colleges A final next week anyway, but it's a very intriguing battle, isn't it, with Kieran's CBS or Kieran's College and St. Raphael's Loughrea. I suppose, guys, we can probably switch on to the Allianz Hurling League. The bye week last week, round 4 coming up, fast approaching. I suppose Division 1A, we have Offaly versus Cork, Clare entertaining Kilkenny in an All-Ireland Senior semi-final rematch. We have Waterford versus Wexford in a Southeast derby. In 1B, Westmeath versus Antrim. Limerick versus Tip being rescheduled to Super Value Park Keeve. And Galway entertaining Dublin in Salt Hill. While in 2A, round 4, Kildare face Kerry on Saturday in Hawkfield. Carlow versus Down on Sunday in Netwatch Cullen Park. And Meath versus Laois conclude those 2A fixtures. I suppose, guys, looking at 1A, one game's really staring out to me. It's the Clare versus Kilkenny game here. Kieran, I suppose, get your thoughts.
Yeah, I suppose it's a repeat fixture of the All-Ireland semi-final last year, and I suppose from a Clare point of view, and especially being on the net, you know, I suppose maybe try to get one up on Kilkenny this year. Won't call it revenge, but just to get the win over them. You know, 'cause I suppose the two teams are sitting top of the division and on 5 points, and you know, I suppose of the two teams, I think maybe Clare have been the most impressive to date. You know, I think if you look back at Kilkenny, obviously the first day out, a draw with Wexford, but that Cork game, you got a huge lead in the first half against Cork, and Cork came back into that game. But I don't even think it was that Cork were really good. I think Kilkenny actually were really bad, and I suppose it'd be worrying parts of that game for Derek Ling. You know, Clare, I suppose, on the other hand, you know, I suppose they have been impressive today. It's kind of a mix of a young brigade coming in with the older guys, and you know, I suppose getting players back in the field, like John Conlon back in the field, and still more to come with Tony Kelly, Ryan Taylor, Shane O'Donnell. But I think that what they have probably unearthed is maybe a couple of, I suppose, more warriors for a bench. I think, you know, Sean Rinn is one of these players that, you know, I think will be thereabouts come championship. You know, he's got more game time into the likes of, you know, Crotty and you know, Shane Meehan as well. You know, I suppose all adds to the panel. I think if you talk to anyone from Clare, that over the last maybe 2 years they haven't been far away, but I suppose the one thing they might have had is just the strength and depth, and I think they've really added to that this year. Whether if you look at Kilkenny, they've probably, you know, maybe I suppose lost you know, Richie Hogan stepping away. I suppose there's very little difference between that Kilkenny team last year and this year. Maybe the inclusion of a couple of Loughlin Gales lads. But, I think as is, for me at the minute, I think Clare are the better team, and just with a little bit more hunger, just with the fixture it's going to be, I probably would give the nod to Clare.
Yeah, Rory, get you in there from a Clare perspective. I suppose they're going all out for a victory here today.
Yeah, I suppose it's kind of one of those ones that if they lose Kilkenny again, is that kind of hanging over them? Even though it's a league game, it is in your own backyard. The fact that Clare, you could say, a non-performance 2 years ago up in Croke Park, and last year, first half was, I won't say a non-performance, but second half to come out all guns blazing, and probably would have felt they should have got over the line. So now you don't want to lose them again and have that hanging over you. So I think Clare will want to get the win here. That said, it is still a weakened Clare team, as Kieran pointed out. They are still down a lot of key men. That said, the guys who have come in have shown that they can hold their own at this level. And I'm sure Lohan will see this an opportunity to just get the final indicators on certain lads. Are they, if you can match up well against the likes of Owen Cody or somebody, it'd be a massive boost for some players who maybe he's slightly indecisive about. And it was just interesting there that Kieran was talking about strength and depth. Limerick last year shipped injuries with Sean Finn, Richie English, full back line, and still came through it unscathed. Clare had one major injury in the full back line, Conor Cleary, and it just threw everything up in the air, as we saw in the Munster final. It's just getting that strength and depth. And Conor Lean, a lad from Corrafin who's come in this year, has looked all right in games so far, has settled into the full back line, and you just wonder, is he kind of stepping ahead of some of the guys in the panel? You've Paul Flanagan, who has never let Clare down, but has been there a long time as well, and you're just wondering, is Lohan looking for maybe another option in the full back line? And so far he seems to have been impressed with Conor Lean, because he's given him a few starts now, and he's held on to the jersey through the 3 games. But overall, it's a big one for Clare, and that I think it's the fact it's Kilkenny. If Clare were playing any other teams in the group in this game, round 4, sitting on 5 points with Offaly to come in the final round, you think they might be taking the foot off the gas. But I think it'll mean something to Lohan and them that they want to get this win here and just maybe put a small bit of the I won't call it a hoodoo or whatever, but put this aura of Kilkenny maybe to bed a small bit for them.
But I think as well, Rory, with round 4, and with all respect to Offaly in the last round game, Clare probably are in a position where they might progress to the semi-finals, but it could be an opportunity to get a really good test. It might be the last real test they get this year. Now, I'd say, in all likeliness, they are going to get to the semi-final, but I suppose it is a test probably Lohan is looking for, and to throw the likes of Sean Rinn and maybe Shane Meehan and these guys in, and Mark Rodgers, and see how they react. Because Kilkenny have been, pretty much full strength the last day or two they've taken to the field. So, to me, I think, any other team, they might, take the foot off the gas a bit. But with it being Kilkenny and would it be potentially a final test, I think it'll be all guns blazing. And
I think from a Kilkenny point of view, Derek Ling sees these games as a chance to learn more about some of these players, and maybe coming up against Antrim, Carlow in the Leinster Championship. These are the games where he can kind of have a bit of trial and error before he goes into Leinster Championship with certain guys. But as you said, Kieran, it seems to be more or less the same 15 Kilkenny. I know Billy Drennan is back, and as you alluded to, a couple of Loughlin Gales boys in there. But when it comes to Championship, it looks like unless things change drastically for them in the last 2 rounds, that he kind of seems pretty sure about 13, 14 of his team. And
I think as well, Rory, if TJ starts, Billy Drennan doesn't. I think it's really going to be, I don't think they're going to carry 2 free takers, or to me, Billy Drennan is not doing enough in open play, and he's a very good free taker, he's very accurate, but I think if TJ starts, Drennan doesn't. That's my opinion.
Yeah, it'd be an interesting test for Kilkenny as well, because they've had dips in performance in recent rounds. I mean, Derek Ling was very fast to provide a commentary that there was words exchanged between the Kilkenny dressing room at halftime of that Offaly game in UPC Nolan Park. There was also the Cork game as well, where they faded a little bit, particularly in that third quarter here, Rory. So, I mean, certainly Derek Ling and Kilkenny will be looking for vastly improved team performance over the 70 minutes on Sunday.
Yeah, well, and look, if they win, they're in a league semi-final, which gives them more opportunity again to have a look at more players and build that bit of confidence. Last year, I suppose, the league final probably, was a bit of a dent to them against Limerick because, for as we said, Clare might have this thing about Kilkenny. Kilkenny definitely have it with Limerick because the last 2 years, especially last year's final and the league final, they were well off Limerick in the end when it came to it. We were talking about 10 points in both final scores. Like, I know they were with them for long stages in the All-Ireland final, league final not so much, but even the year previously as well. Just there, they were always at 2-3 points off Limerick, and I know they kind of closed the gap and maybe got back to a point or whatever, but you just didn't really feel they were going to win the game. So maybe for Kilkenny point of view, if they can get to meet Limerick in a knockout stage of a league and get a victory there, I'm sure it'll be a boost to them going forward as well. So Derek Lingle, I think, will be looking to win this game. Simple as, and they don't want to leave it down to Waterford in the last match. Waterford could be fighting to stay in Division 1A for next year. They'll want to try and get it, their position done and dusted at the weekend if they can.
But I think for me with Kilkenny, it's that Offaly game, and I think they tried it as well last year against Tipperary, where they went all out short. I think they're struggling with that short aspect of the game. Look, they have been mixing it the last year or two, but like you go back to that league game against Tipperary last year, like Tipperary steamrolled them, but it was I probably Kilkenny were the creators of their own downfall, really, going short, really poor errors like dropping passes. And I think it was the same it was definitely the second half of that Cork game. Owen Murphy went short a couple of times, and like Cork turned him over once or twice late on in that game. Like Bashar Puckouts given to the full back with someone on his back. That's not what you'd associate with Kilkenny hurling. I think that after the game, it was probably a game that went to the trial, I suppose going short a bit more and seeing it, and I don't think it worked. But look, they have been mixing it fairly well in the last year or two, but I just don't think they're comfortable, playing an all-out short game compared to the likes of maybe what Cork and Waterford did.
Another thing as well, I think they need more forwards to step up as well. When it came to the crunch last year in Championship, you're looking like if teams know, I think if they hold Owen Cody and Mullen, that like the rest of the forwards are a bit like one lad like Phelan might score 4 points one day, Donnelly the next, but there's no consistency with them. And that's why none of them have really been able to nail down a place for themselves in the team. And there's a bit of chop and change amongst the rest of the forwards. And that's something I think that has to come. Like back in the day, the 6 Kilkenny forwards were, they were, each of them were just like, you just knew what each of them would give, and their level of consistency was so high. Whereas at the minute, like Owen Cody and Mullen, now that he's fully back and fully charged, like they just seem to be their most consistent performers again, and they just need a bit more from the rest of the forwards.
I think Roy, Donlan is a little bit of an unsung hero. I think he gets through an awful lot of work, probably unseen.
Yeah. But
I definitely agree with the likes of Mossy Keoghan and Billy Ryan. I think Tom Phelan had a very good year last year. He needs to back it up. But I think you're correct, like with Cody and Mullen aside, and that's been the way this year in the league so far as well. I think Mullen has probably been playing his best hurling to date. He scored 7 points one day and 5 another. But you take him out of the game, and I suppose all that pressure falls on Owen Cody then inside. Yeah,
absolutely. I suppose, Kieran, we've gotten your tip. You're slightly edging it to Clare, are you?
I think I think Clare would have that extra bit of motivation based on probably the last 2 years. I think also they have been impressive today in the league so far. I think Kilkenny have been kind of stop-startish for me. Both teams are on 5. I suppose Clare have the advantage of Offaly. They're going away to Offaly last game, which you probably would see as 2 points. But I think just as we mentioned earlier, just because it's Kilkenny, I suppose they would want to get the one up on them in case they do meet again in the Championship.
Yeah, Rory, who are you tipping on Sunday?
Yeah, hesitant tip for Clare. Just again, the fact, like as Kieran said, you're coming up more or less against a full strength Kilkenny, and it isn't the full strength Clare. But you just feel though the reason I am kind of tipping for Clare's way is there's going to be a big crowd in Ennis. That they've only had 2 league games at home, and the other game was the Cork game way back in round 1, which was a dirty old January day, and live in telly, so it didn't really draw a huge crowd. Whereas this one will, and you're just thinking that Clare are going to really be set to win this, as will Kilkenny, but just home advantage and everything else. Just a very hesitant tip to Clare here.
I suppose the next game that's leaping out on the paper is Southeast Derby, Waterford Wexford in Walsh Park. I suppose Kieran's going to be a big crowd down in Walsh Park on Sunday. I suppose get your thoughts on it from both counties.
I suppose both teams have work yet to do to secure, 1A Division 1A hurling next year. I suppose the good thing is that the fate is still in their hands, both teams. I think if Wexford were to beat Waterford, it almost secures 1A next year for them. I think worst case scenario, they would finish fourth, and I think, with a bit of prediction, they would have 5 points. I can't see a fourth place team in the other group having, 5 or 6 points. So I think the win would cement that place. I suppose for Waterford, Waterford sitting on 2 points. They possibly need results from their last 2 games. They're obviously at home to Wexford and they're home to Kilkenny last 2 games. So I suppose 2 tough fixtures in a way for them. There is players starting to come back from a Water point of view. I suppose the last day we saw Jamie Barron coming on. Mikey Kiley came on and thought he was really impressive. Made 2 real darting runs at goal against Cork. Peter Hogan, I suppose, other players are probably going far away. I can't imagine Desi Hutchins is too far off. I suppose slowly but surely they're getting players back on the field. I don't think the word is too good on Stephen Bennett. I think the last I heard he was to miss the rest of the league campaign, so they're going to be without him. I think that's maybe one area of concern is a free taker. Obviously if they get Patrick Fitzgerald or maybe Desi back in the field, because I don't think Jack Prendergast was as comfortable as a free taker as others may be. So look, they have been injury hit in the last couple of rounds. Look, they haven't been impressive either. They've probably failed to deceive, and I think the Waterford public are iffy enough on whether they're happy with Davy in a position there or not, and I suppose how the team are playing, and I suppose how they have played last year as well. But there is, I suppose, their artillery is coming. There's, I imagine the likes of Jamie Barron and Mikey Kiley will start this weekend. They're a big side. They like to run. You know what you're going to get with them. They're going to play a spare man at the back. So I suppose teams know how to set up against them. They have some crazy ideas in their own puckouts, but I suppose whatever works for them, they'll be confident they can get a result the weekend, but they also will need a result against Kilkenny too. So I think for them it's a tough passage, but as I said, it's still within their own hands, so it's not hard lost yet for them.
Yeah, Rory, get you in here. This is an intriguing game down in Walsh Park. I suppose what are the key matchups you're looking forward to?
I wonder, can we call this one the Davy Derby, no? Or the sweeper sticks? But
you have the trademark now.
I think Kieran hit the nail on the head. Free taking is going to be huge in this because it has been an issue with Wexford going back 2 or 3 years with free taking, and Lee Chin seemed to be a lot more solid than frees, especially so far in the league. And I'm not sure what the prognosis is with Lee Chin's injury, but it's no harm anyway for Wexford to maybe nail down a second free taker, and Waterford definitely have to, because as Kieran said the last day, it was without Bennett, they were even chopping and changing. Kieran Lyons took some, Jake Prendergast took others, and neither of them looked, I know Kieran got 2 long range ones, but neither of them looked comfortable, kind of the ones that, let's say, the bread and butter frees. So it is something, especially with Pádraig Mahoney not committing, who is probably still the best free taker in the county along with Bennett. So yeah, it is something that Waterford will need to figure out, and it could be the winner of the game in what will be a tight game. And for Waterford, the last day, it was the first time, I suppose, at the end of the game, we saw kind of Davy with a bit of a smirk or smile at the end of it, because I think he was happy with how it finished. He was getting his big guns back on the field for the end of the game, and we saw how they very quickly whittled down Cork's lead, back down to more or less the minimum coming into injury time. And it was the first probably green shoots for Waterford. I know they had a big win over Offaly in round 1, but that Clare game would have hurt them at home in the opening of their new pitch below Walsh Park, or new stand and all that, and they would have wanted to win there, and it just didn't perform on the day. So there was kind of green shoots there, and it's something that they have to back that up now. And the funny thing is, I know Watford had been pointing out all the players that they were missing earlier in the league, but these boys were there for the championship last year, and they were well off it. They were the first team knocked out in Munster, and maybe it's the fact that when these were missing, did anyone really stand up for Waterford that we hadn't come across before? I know Sean Walsh inside did do a bit of scoring, especially against Clare, got a great goal off Conor Cleary. Maybe he might be someone that might edge his way in there, but I think that's the most worrying thing for Waterford, was while they were without your Barons and Caleb Lyons and stuff, there wasn't really any major guys. Paddy Levy, of course, in the sweeper role, has done well with it. He's the expert he's brought on the mantle of the brick flicks anyway, because he's 80% of the ball he uses is a brick flick, but he's very accurate with it, and came up the pitch and got some points from play the last day as well. I think it was 3 from play, Kieran, wasn't it? The last day against Cork.
3 from play,
so
yeah.
He is a sweeper that is given the license to get forward when Waterford are in possession. I suppose something other teams have to be aware of as well is just keep an eye on him when Waterford are in possession, because it is something that happens with teams. You take your eye off the sweeper, and he has shown his ability to score. So it is probably something that teams have to be aware of. But yeah, if Waterford win this, they're kind of right back in it again, and because they have Kilkenny in the last game. If Clare beat Kilkenny and then Waterford beat them in the last match, that puts Waterford in 6 points, and they jump past Kilkenny. So it was kind of all doom and gloom for them, but I suppose it still depends how Cork get on in their other games. But a win at the weekend, and they're right back in the mix of it.
Absolutely. Kieran, I get you in there in terms of Wexford. I mean, 3 draws in the first 3 rounds of the league. I mean, is there any sense here down in Wexford? I know you're based in Wexford. Just in terms of the injuries, is it going to take its toll here during the league campaign?
I think looking back, this year, I suppose the main factor is they're unbeaten from Walsh Cup into the league, which is probably a positive in itself. The 3 draws, obviously not you wouldn't pick them over a win any day, but still, it's I suppose each day had its own battle, and I suppose they ground out the results. In Nolan Park against Kilkenny, they played against Offaly with 30 men and got the draw, and I suppose the same the last day. Against Clare, where Clare probably were the better team in the second half, but Wexford still found a way with an experimental team of sorts. I suppose maybe 2/3 of the teams that have been taken to the field wouldn't be your names, I suppose the household names of Wexford hurling the last couple of years, probably aside from the 2 Rex, Shane and Damien, Lee Chin has been there. But there has been a lot of youth and I suppose new players to the setup, but Niall Murphy, Owen Ryan, Seamus Casey, these guys like this weren't, in and around Wexford hurling the last couple of years. So while they are unbeaten with with a younger team, and I suppose an inexperienced team, there is players still to come back, and I suppose very important players as you look at them. Liam Ryan is still left to take to the field. Straight away, there's a problem like Liam Ryan, who we've accustomed to being full back. But you look at Conor Foley, who's been probably standout performer in the Wexford jersey the last couple of days. So there's a jersey battle straight away, which is all has its own benefits. Liam McGovern is back in training. Such a huge player. It's probably the work he does that's unseen. Just in the Wexford Championship last year, like he is, I suppose, shoving it on an age, but he was probably the best player, for his team to end. Like he's just the type of player he goes through Walsh, and I suppose he's going to be really important as the championship rolls in. I suppose big names like Ruairi O'Connor still has to take to the field. Conor McDonald as well, so D. O'Keefe, another one of these. So big names that have been thereabouts, and I suppose have done it for Wexford are still to take to the field. So I'm sure they'd like to introduce 1 or 2 of them over the next 2 rounds, and get some game time in before championship. I suppose there is concerns over Lee Chin. He got picked up an injury the last day. I think the news is that Kevin Foley is okay, so he more likely to be there. But look, I think for key roster and what they're probably trying to gain this year is performance, I suppose, and get a bit of belief back into the jersey. That this time last year, things weren't going that good, and I suppose we all know how close they were to being a Joe McDonough team at the end of the championship last year. So it is a bit of a rebuild, and not just on paper, but I suppose you're rebuilding confidence and trying to get a bit of I suppose pride and I suppose get that winning attitude and mentality back into the team. And I think to date it probably has been a successful campaign so far. And I suppose if they could secure 1 win from the last 2 games, I think that it'll be a hugely successful league to retain Division 1A hurling for next year. And it'll definitely buy them going into the championship. And I suppose you would be fairly hopeful of a top 3 finish then, with playing Dublin at home first game out. Dublin probably had their problems, but I suppose you don't build your housing foundations like that, because we've seen teams over the years where they've struggled in the league and then championship pitch and they're a different team completely. So I think anyone who's writing off Dublin yet might be a little bit foolish. They're not probably Lee McCarthy contenders, but on their day they have very, very good players who can win tight games.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Can we get tips from you, Waterford, Wexford, Please don't say another draw for Wexford here. Rory, Waterford, Wexford on Sunday.
This is actually the one out of all the games that does look like it could be a draw. For both teams, as I said, they're like Waterford win and they're kind of in the mix. Wexford win, they're definitely in the mix. They'll be up at 5 points, and unless Clare and Kilkenny draw and go to 6, they'll be level with one of they'll be top 2, which will give them a great chance of making the league semi-final. On the other hand, if they lose, like Waterford will jump them, and Cork as well playing Offaly could jump them too, and they could be suddenly looking the other way after what has been a positive start. Just, I suppose, Wexford have been showing more in the league, and you can only go on form, and I'm going to go with Wexford again, a hesitant Wexford tip.
Grand, thanks, Rory. Kieran, Waterford, Wexford, who are you tipping?
Yeah, I suppose it's hard to know. Like, if you're based on the performances so far, you probably would give it to Wexford. But then I think you're going to see a lot more close to championship team with Waterford this weekend. Even looking back to last week, like Jamie Barron, Peter Hogan, Mikey Kiley, they made such a difference when they came on, and I think that's when the turnaround started to happen. I suppose Mikey Kiley is such a threat inside. Not a lot of Waterford play gets in there, but like, he's working on scrappy ball, but he's so efficient with it. We've seen him. I remember last year's Fitzgibbon final, he scored 3 goals from nothing really. 3 scrappy balls. So if he gets it, he's really dangerous. For me, I don't see a place for Mikey Kiley and Sean Walsh in the same team. I think the two alike. Sean Walsh has been impressive. Definitely, he scored real opportunist goals in the last couple of games. But I think Mikey Kiley showed like that threat. He just ran down the heart of Cork and didn't know how to deal with him. But I'm probably sidestepping here a bit now. But I'm going to give it to Wexford. I still think Waterford are. They don't know where they're at. I just don't think Davies' style of play works anymore. Taking to the field with a sweeper every day, I know it's his style and that's his game, but he probably perfected it in many ways. But I think teams know how to play against it now, and they find ways around it. And I just think Waterford hurling is probably not in the best of places after the last couple of years, probably. But I think even the fact that certain players have decided not to play is a story in itself. And I'm just going to give it to Wexford, just I'd say by the minimum, I think. But there won't be much between them. Yeah,
no worries at all. I suppose, guys, Offaly, Cork, maybe have a quick preview here. I mean, Offaly have impressed here. I mean, got a draw down in Chadwick's Park. Wexford led by 6 points against Kilkenny, granted with a strong wind down in UPC MC, Nolan Park. Signs are positive here, Rory. Can we see more positive signs for them against Cork in Tullamore?
Yeah, they have to build on those 2 performances. Cork have the potential. Any team who stands off Cork and gives them space, they have the potential to to rack up a big total, because they have that threat in the forwards all the time if given space. So Offaly are going to have to be ultra tight and physical on the Cork forwards and not give them that inch that they want. From an Offaly point of view, they have Johnny Kelly has blooded in Ravenhill this year, one of the stars of the minor under-20s team. Adam Screeney as well has kind of nipped in there, who Boyd after winning the Fresh All Ireland again with UL there midweek. Not his type of conditions. Wednesday night was a monsoon. It wasn't what you'd associate with Adam Screeney with Offaly in the under-20s there in the summer. But maybe a bit of momentum from that going into might give a bit of confidence in against Cork, and Offaly really would love to see him, really start for the senior team. I know it's only league, but just get that kind of feeling of confidence that he is in at that level. But from an Offaly point of view, yeah, they need to back up the performances that they've. It would be a shame for them, and we mentioned this already, that if they kind of with 2 rounds to go, that they let that slip and end up with maybe 2 big defeats. Because at the other hand, I suppose we were saying they were 6 points up against Kilkenny, and I know there was a breeze involved, but Kilkenny had that lead whittled down in 10 minutes like it was gone. Kilkenny were maybe 6 points up themselves, so that it was a 12-point turnaround there very quickly. And you just kind of hope that when that moment happens in a game, that Offaly are able to handle it a bit better, like maybe stop momentum, do something to slow down the opposition and just trying to get through that spell in a game, because every team has to weather a storm at some stage in a match. And especially with Offaly playing against teams that are a division ahead of them, and when it comes to championship, they're going to have to learn to get through those moments. But look, overall, you have to see Cork will fancy themselves up here. They have a habit sometimes of putting up big scores against Joe McDonagh teams in Championship, and I know Offaly might say that they're not quite Joe McDonagh, but for the minute that's where they are in Championship. And I just see Cork winning this, and possibly, a bit more comfortably than Kilkenny beat Offaly.
Yeah, Kieran, get you in there. I suppose even from a Cork perspective, news of Mark Coleman's more injury role for Coleman. I suppose, what are we expecting from Cork this weekend?
She's very hard look on Mark Coleman again after missing all last year. Really came back in, and I thought he really impressed as well. And what I've seen of him, I do agree. I think Cork will win the game, but I think for Johnny Kelly and Offaly, I think this year in the league is probably about performances. It's about putting it up to the big teams. Obviously they'll try and see the win if they can, but I just can't see it. I think if Offaly get in the face of the Cork, as Roy said, don't give them that inch, turn it into a dogfight. Cork won't like that. Cork like open running space, and a tough place to go to Tullamore and try and get a result. I do, as I said, Cork will get the win. I think they will find ways, but I just think for Offaly, they need to back it up with a good performance again. And I think that's what they're looking for this year, to take it to the Joe McDonagh, and they have been impressive. Like even that Waterford game, I think just the first half set up, they let Waterford, they set off Waterford and let them have the puck outs, and it was catastrophic really. But when they pushed up on them, they caused Waterford all sorts of trouble, and it was only the last couple of minutes Waterford started to pull away, and I suppose the same with the extra game. Like that first half, geez, they were ferocious. They were the intensity they brought to it and the work rate, and they're physically they're there, they're at the standard you need to be. And I suppose they're reintroducing a couple of these 20s as well, with Screeney and Raven will be the two to note. So Charlie Mitchell's been really impressive this year as well. They would have played a good with the seniors last year, but Cork have their own troubles, I think, at the minute. They just seem to have too many forwards, and they can't pick who they want to play. Does Hargan need to be playing? I think Hargan probably deserves a break at the age he's at. He's played every league game to date, and in a long round-winded way, I suppose, I do think Cork will win, but I'd like to see Offaly causing trouble, and I suppose just get another performance to back up the Wexford and Kilkenny, the first half Kilkenny performance.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head here, Kieran. I think performance mantra is everything here for Johnny Kelly and Offaly, and same for you, Rory, as well. When they have that bad spell, Cork may score the 1-2, 1-3. How did they respond to it? They didn't really respond too well against Kilkenny in that third quarter. I suppose, guys, we'll move on to 1B. And Saturday night, RTE, the televised game, is Limerick Tipperary. This is supposed to be scheduled for Gaelic grounds, but due to the pitch preparations here for the upcoming season, this has been switched to Super Value Park of Kiev, which kind of adds more intrigue to the game. I suppose, Rory, Limerick Tip here, I'm suspecting here both teams are going to go all out for this one, are they?
Yeah, and I suppose Limerick will have to play Cork down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh this year, so it gives them a run out as well. No harm a few weeks beforehand to go out and play in the venue, and I know Limerick are familiar enough with it, but still to go out there 5-6 weeks before you meet them Munster Championship, it isn't a bad thing at all. I know still though Limerick would have wanted their home games in terms of revenue and just support and everything like that, but it does make it more like it's not quite a home game now, and we'll see it as a great chance of getting one over in Limerick and topping the group. They're already after beating Galway, and beating Limerick will have them sitting pretty at the top of the group as well. And we spoke at the very start of Tipperary, one of the teams that really could do with that confidence boost of winning the league after the way you could say last year's kind of championship campaign petered out for them. So yeah, it looks like we're waiting for one beat to kind of ignite, and it could be this weekend with Limerick Tip. And it's great that it is a Saturday night game, because they're really enjoyable games sitting down a Saturday evening, and it'll be after the rugby as well. So it'll keep hopefully it'll keep an audience on TV watching, because it should be a cracking game.
Yeah, Kieran, get you in there. I suppose looking at this game on Saturday night, what's standing out for you? What are the kind of key matchups potentially?
Firstly, Rory, I just want to, some people would say Limerick don't need the revenue, with the Gaelic grounds being closed. So don't believe everything you hear.
Something has to keep the lights switched on.
She's reverse 12 months to the fixture Limerick and Tip. It was rip roaring, the whole Alan Tynan and William O'Donoghue incident before throwing. I think two teams are going to go all out for this. I think Limerick have probably not easier games to date. They haven't been tested. I think this is probably the first test they're going to face this year. And I think Kylie will relish this and probably a ramp up into championship with Galway coming again next week. They want to ramp up to the intensity and the level they need to be at for our championship. So I think the perfect 2 games you're going to get. Páirc Uí Chaoimh probably has suited Limerick in the last couple of years. I suppose a lot of people say it's similar to Croke Park in size, and I suppose everyone has probably knows that if Limerick and Croke Park are, it's probably where they like to be. I think Páirc Uí Chaoimh does suit them as well. Look, Tipperary have been impressive this year. Personally, myself, I'll admit it, I didn't think they were going to be. I thought they were going to struggle this year, but they have unearthed a couple of players, and Sean Ryan, I suppose moving Bo back to wing back has probably rejuvenated him a little bit. Brother Connor has been shooting the lights out and getting man of the matches for fun. And I suppose Noel McGrath has just kind of came back in, and they're bringing their own top guns back in probably the last day or two. I think it's going to be a real contest, but I do think Limerick will go on top. I just think I suppose they haven't played full team yet. You might see close to it. I suppose Aaron Gillan or Keane Lynch, Declan Hannon haven't taken to the field yet, so maybe it's a time to introduce these guys. I know Sean and Finn is back in training. It'll probably come too soon for him. I expect a good battle, and I said the Saturday night games are great. I do think it'll be a Limerick result though.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, from Tipperary side, Jason Fords just came back in against Westmeath in round 3. Cathal Barrett apparently back in training with Tipperary. So some of those big guns coming back in. But I suppose, Rory, it's an intriguing fixture whenever these 2 counties do meet. Fireworks usually are delivered here, and I suppose we expect no different on Saturday.
Yeah, and it is kind of one that, look, I don't think John Kiley, we saw how he ramped up a bit against Dublin in terms of team selection. It was coming back a bit closer to the championship team, and that might have been with a view of this Tipperary game as well, just to make sure lads aren't coming in too cold against Tipperary, because it's a kind of game Limerick will not want to lose. And just saw last year in championship how Tipperary took Limerick to a draw, and would have felt that they were closing in on Limerick, and John Kiley might want to maybe go out and just kind of make sure that Tipperary don't get the boost of beating Limerick a few weeks out from the championship. So yeah, an intriguing game. Again, from a Limerick point of view, in terms of players that they have been looking at and through the league, still Cathal O'Neill at centre back was a very interesting one the last day. If he impressed enough, you'd wonder, will he have another look maybe against a team Tipperary that will offer him problems more defensively than Dublin did? Because Cathal O'Neill's been a forward since he was under 12s, so but still, as we know in the modern game, Declan Hannon was a forward too, who was converted. John Conlon was a forward who was converted. So centre back seems to be, if there's one place you can put a forward back, it seems to be centre back. Tipperary then, as we mentioned, they've had a lot of players coming through in colleges hurling, Cathal Quinn there, Mary I, Joe Caesar, Hennessy, Devin Ryan. These were all lads that were impressed in Fitzgibbon Cup, and even with the UL pressures the other night, you had Gerard Dwyer from Boherlahan, full back. And you had Butler then from Kilsheelan, who caused fierce problems for DCU in the forward line. So these are guys that are really coming to the fore, and I suppose it's a good indicator of what's coming next when you look at colleges hurling, see the teams that are doing well, and Tipperary are kind of filling up a lot of those places at the minute. And I just think, though, is there a small bit of a gap between, let's say, the McGraths, Jason Ford? Seems to be a few years of a gap between them and this bunch that are coming through now. And maybe it can cause problems in terms of trying to gel a team together. It's handy to have a few players that are kind of in between age-wise, because it's just something that it's a bit harder for Liam Cahill to manage, I suppose, in terms of when to put in the elder statesmen, kind of when to blood in the new guys, and even during a match to judging when a player would Noel McGrath as an impact coming off the bench with 20 minutes to go, do you start? And these are kind of things when you do have pressure coming on from young lads coming through. But it's going to make for an intriguing game, and just as well, I'd probably give it to Limerick in terms of it's funny, certain pitches do suit certain teams, and Limerick seem to do very well down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, as Kieran pointed out. Apart from that first half against Tipperary, they must have finally a few years ago, but they really made up for it in the second half that day. So you just feel, with their first big game, I think Kiley has been looking at this one from a few weeks out, and it should be a rip-roaring game, and just gonna kind of give Limerick the edge in this one.
In Salthill Sunday afternoon, Dublin travel to face Galway, and I suppose that round 3 performance, the curtain raiser to Dublin carrying the football, wouldn't have done much. But Kieran, You've been a strong supporter here of Dublin here. You feel that this team is capable of much better here. Do you feel that there's a performance or just a response coming into Sunday against Galway?
Yeah, I suppose the Limerick game, albeit how bad as it was for them, but they still have players taking to the field for the first time this year. Donald Burke, Sutcliffe, Cummy, Ronan Hayes, real big hurlers in Dublin hurling, and that game will stand to them. I suppose like Ruairi or Donald Burke hasn't hurled in a couple of months, and to get back up to speed and get the touch right, and I do think they will get better than what they've been to date this year. Do I think there'll be a match for Galway? No, I think Galway are going to put a big score on Dublin. But I think that game against Limerick will stand to them. I do expect probably a better performance. Like they weren't terrible in that first 25 minutes against Limerick. The Dublin like to run from deep and run it off the shoulder, and I suppose they did do that against Limerick, and they caused some troubles at the back for Limerick. Created a few goal scoring opportunities, it's not executed properly. So they are going to get better. I have no doubt of that. But I just think Galway are a different team, a different animal, and Galway might use this game to like the younger lads like Gavin Lee and McLaughlin and these guys to give them more game time, and I can't see anything else but a Galway win, a handsome win, I would say too.
Yeah, and I suppose Ruairi, looking from a Galway perspective, the likes of Jason Flynn has really impressed in recent league cameos. There's been some very high scoring performances from Galway, and are you expecting the same in Salthill on Sunday?
Yeah, I am. Look, they have been going through the league pretty well. The Tipperary game, the only blip, but they kind of had Tipperary. They were right back in there until the penalty near the end of it, and Galway were still in experimental mode in that game. Galway, I suppose, they have been an enigma for a few years. Jason Flynn kind of typifies the county in that for everyone looking on, you can't understand really how Jason Flynn doesn't start more for Galway, and then seems to comes off the bench and scores 1-2, and you're saying why wasn't he starting? And I know Sir Raphael has been championing him for a long time. I know there's the Woodford connection there as well. Sir might be a bit biased in that, but he was saying that his famous line, Searles, was anyone that watches like Galway club hurling cannot understand how Jason Flynn isn't a nailed down starter. And maybe if he had that faith shown in him that I think one or two other Galway forwards have had shown in them, and they've been given passes for poor performances, whereas poor performance for Jason Flynn, he seems to wind back up on the bench again. There isn't that, if you're always looking over your shoulder, it's hard to maybe settle and produce, but he does typify Galway, because if he's up and down, Galway definitely are, and you just don't know what you're going to get. Like last year's Dublin performance in the championship, where they were down 12 points, came from nowhere. Everybody thought Galway were Henry Shefflin after giving Limerick a great game in the semi-final previous at Ireland, that they were on the way up, and then that there were alarm bells ringing after that game. And I know they rallied and put Tipperary to the sword in the quarter final, but then you had that Jekyll and Hyde performance again against Limerick, where they were brilliant for 20-25 minutes. People debated whether Shefflin unnecessarily changed the team around and kind of played into Limerick hands in a way, but there was no response from Galway. That was the worrying thing when Limerick got a hold of the game. There was nothing, came back, no response. But I'm not as optimistic about Dublin as Kieran is. I think that they're in trouble. And if they ship another beating here, I think they could be in real trouble going into Leinster Championship. There's a potential slide here, and if there wasn't for the 6 teams in Leinster, and there was one team less, I think they could be in danger of Joe McDonagh in the next couple of years, unless they can fix the slide. And Kieran's been pointing out they have been without some major players, but other counties seem to have been getting on fine without certain players, and it just shows maybe the lack of depth in Dublin, that they're down 3 or 4 seasoned starters that they seem to can be beaten 15 points. It's worrying. Yeah, it's something. Maybe they go to Salthill now and put down a marker and show that where they really are. But at the minute, it's hard to have any optimism from my point of view anyway for Dublin. Not just in the Galway game, but in the championship coming afterwards either.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose the big brother Dublin Gaelic football, they're ominous as well. There is some very talented hurlers that are playing intercounty football as well, so it's always going to be a challenge for the county. I suppose, guys, are we kind of tipping Galway here? It sounds like yourself, Ruairi, and Kieran giving a strong vote to Galway.
Yeah, I think the worrying thing for Dublin is we saw this. We talked about it in the league last year. They had the 12 or 13 players that started every league game because they were the core group of guys they relied on. Bar maybe Diarmuid O'Dooling this year, there's been no one player that has really stepped up. I think Brian Hayes probably has been in midfield, has been impressive, and Conor Burke as well, too, midfield. But I suppose regarding new players, if Donoghue was, in a rebuild stage, we're probably yet to see new players taking their chance. But they're still, if you're a team with Donald Burke on it, you're still going to be hard to beat come the big day, So I don't think they're going to win Leinster or anything like that, but they are going to improve from what they've been for the last couple of weeks.
And I suppose, guys, the last fixture in round 4 of Division 1B is Westmeath Antrim. Is this a opportunity knocks moment for Westmeath? They've been knocking on the door here, being pretty competitive against Limerick. They gave Tipperary an awful scare second half down in Thurles. I suppose here, Kieran, does Joe Fortune and the team really circle this game against an Antrim side who have coming off a heavy loss against Galway?
Yeah, I think we said it last week. If you're Westmeath at the minute with a little bit of confidence going, the last 2 games, they have Westmeath next week have Dublin, so I suppose they're probably facing 2 teams who have been struggling the last couple of rounds. They're playing at home against Antrim. Look, Antrim have been really, I suppose, disappointing. I think that, we mentioned Dublin on the slide. Look, Antrim had their problems. A lot of players have stepped away. They really are, I suppose, struggling as well this year. For me, Conor Cunning, people call him the talisman, and while he scored 113 2 weeks ago, 2 rounds ago, Tony score was about 2 points last week, so a talisman does it every day out. So I suppose from an Antrim point of view, that would be worrying. I think this is Westmeath's time, just to game at home. Killian Doyle came on the last as well, got 2 points. I'm sure he'll play a bigger part this weekend. And for me, I'm going to give Westmeath to that.
Yeah, Rory, do you feel the same?
I do actually. Yeah, I think Westmeath have shown more than Antrim in the league. Really, if you compare how Dublin performed against Limerick even and Westmeath, I know you can't really compare like for like, but Westmeath backed that up with a performance down in Thurles as well. So that was a big thing for me, that they were able to go out 2 weeks in a row and put 2 performances together after a dismal round 1 against Galway. So now they have an opportunity here to beat Antrim and then go in against Dublin then in the last round and maybe come out of this with 2 wins, which would be huge, going into Joe McDonough. And we were speaking about this last week, how all the talks about Offaly, but Westmeath go in there coming out of 2 wins in 1B, and they'll be the ones coming in, kind of buoyed with confidence. And Offaly might not have it all their own way yet in 1B if Westmeath. But again, you're looking at Westmeath keeping the likes of Killian Doyle fit and healthy as well. They had wing forward O'Reilly with the UL Freshers team as well, who's an All-Ireland medal starting in the UL team too. So there is some talent coming through and emerging there. So yeah, look, the Westmeath will be they will be targeting this game, I think, and I presume in a way it's something that's been said to the players, that it's no point having moral defeats, let's say, against or moral victories, I should say, in defeat against Limerick and Tipperary if you don't then beat the teams that are kind of at your level. So yeah, I think it's a huge game for our Westmeath point of view, and if they lose these last 2 games and come out with 0 points, it'll be a disappointing league campaign despite all the signs that things were improving for them. But at the same time, get 2 wins and they're going to go into Joe McDonough, full of confidence and with a bit of momentum.
I think it's the pressures on Westmeath to really deliver a win here, to be perfectly honest, given how Antrim have been. And I mean, likes of Mitchell inside, he caused Tipperary awful problems here. I'm just fearful of Antrim here for the back line. They have been leaking goals. So look, probably hedge the bet to Westmeath. I suppose 2A round 4, I mean, Kildare, Kerry, Carlow versus Down, Meath versus Laois. It's all kind of setting up for round 5. But guys, do you see anything here of an upset in any of these games? I suppose, Kieran?
For me, I think Kerry, even though they're away, I'd probably fancy Kerry against Kildare. Having got Shane Conlon back in the field last week, scoring 1-9. Disappointing start to the league campaign, but look, a young team as well. Kildare, I suppose, getting the draw against Down, but I just think Kerry for me. Carlow Down, I think, Carlow at home. Carlow have been impressive this year, and I think Carlow that one. And Meath versus Laois. Laois will be disappointed with the Carlow loss. And I suppose you'd have to, they're still there. They're sitting on 4 points behind Laois or behind Carlow. So I predict Laois and that game. I still think it's Carlow Laois top 2. I don't think there's any change in that. Kerry have Laois last day out, so maybe if me could get a result on them, it might put more pressure on them. But I think for me, if Laois win, they're on 6 points, and it would all come down to that last game next week, Laois Kerry. I'd probably could have scored it from stop of that, but look, it's still all to play for Kerry, but I think Laois would be very disappointed with the start they made if they didn't make top 2 at this stage.
Yeah, Ruairi, get you in there for 2A, looking pretty intriguing.
Yeah, if Carlow beat Down, which is kind of what you would expect, Carlow being at home to Down, it does set up if Laois beat, let's say, if Kerry can get that win over Kildare, then there'll be 2 points off Laois with Laois to play in the last game. I think it might be a head-to-head when there's just 2 teams left.
Indeed.
So if Kerry can beat them, they will pip Laois, and after Kerry's opening performance, open couple of performances like that, if that's how it works out and they're given that shot against Laois, I'm sure they'll be delighted with it. Another big boost for Kerry, I suppose, is we heard of Mackesy going to Loughlin Gales, but he's committed his intercounty future to Kerry anyway. And I know you would say, well, it's a big difference being with Derek Ling, be interested in calling him in, but it's just even the fact that if he's with Loughlin Gales and Kilkenny to get back to North Kerry and over and back is it's a huge commitment to make. So the fact he has committed for the short-term future, at least, it is a boost because he's a very important player to them. And as Kieran pointed out, Shane Conway is possibly the best forward in the whole division when he's on song, as he showed against Meath the last day. And it's something Kildare will have to just nail down the man marker on him and Kirby's influence. Again, Kildare in a funny situation in that they went up and got a great result up in Down, a hard place to go up to Ballyacran and get a result. And by all means, probably were disappointed they didn't come away with both points there. Kildare beat Kerry and come in with one last win, they'll be at 5 points, and it'll be the opposite of their league campaign last year, where they ended up in the league final and ran awfully very close in the league final. They'll be actually
and actually on that too, if Kildare do get a result, they have Carlow last round at home. If Carlow get to win the weekend on 8 points, you'd expect them to be probably resting a series of players. So I suppose it's not outside any realms of a possibility.
And look, it is worth pointing out, maybe Kildare looked back and reassessed things and felt that they put too much into the league last year and were a bit stale, because the Joe McDonagh is a grueling campaign. It's a full round robin as well.
Yeah,
you're up against the same teams again, more or less. So maybe they've reassessed things and kind of said, okay, let's start off a bit slower this year and build things up slowly so that we're hitting Joe McDonagh at peak. Because last year it looked like they had done all their best hurling in the league.
Am I right in saying that the 2A league final last year went straight into Joe McDonagh the weekend after? Did Offaly play something like 8 weeks in a row?
It was, yes.
Having won, so it's probably not. It's not probably. It isn't fair on the 2A teams if they do win the league to have to go straight into a Joe McDonagh campaign. Yeah,
and we spoke about it. The prize is high, because the top 2 teams will be playing. They'll be playing a far stronger division, and the bottom 4 teams will be playing all credit to, but the likes of Mayo, Sligo, really emerging counties. So there is a big prize in finishing top 2. So if Kerry, Down, any of these have a whiff of it going into the last round, Laois will be looking over their shoulder a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know Bill Maher was he highlighted pretty clearly down in O'Moore Park straight after the Carlow game that this Kerry game, the final round, was kind of a be-all, end-all season definer for Laois. But have they taken their eye off the ball a bit? Meath have been competitive in various games this season. Saoirse Bulfin, new management team in charge. I would not be surprised if Meath kind of pushed Laois close here. I mean, comments from Bill Maher, I think, to be fair enough, but I think Meath will deserve a bit of respect there. If there is a potential upset, it might be there in Meath. Guys, we'll probably leave it there, I suppose. Just give kudos to Moline, the Ireland Junior B Hurling final champions. Beating Drummond. I know Kieran, being a handman, it's kind of thumbs down there, but again, Ben Hayes and Max Ivory, 2-11 to beat Drummond, 2-11 to 9 points. Congratulations. This is a great competition for Junior B Hurling. It's been going on for 20 years, so kudos to Moline there. I suppose, guys, next week we'll review round 4 of the league, kind of coming fairly quickly into the end of the league's campaign. So we'll have reflections there and see round 5 what it brings. We'll also have a look at the school's final, a final between Kieran's and also St. Raphael's. I suppose until then, guys, thanks very much for coming on and have a great weekend.
Thanks, Mark.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this podcast episode. If you liked what you heard in this podcast, why not subscribe to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast on either Amazon, Spotify, YouTube or Twitter platforms. You You can also follow me at Hawkeye Sidekick on Facebook and Twitter for the latest sporting opinions, articles and reports.